All right, well, it's just after 11 a.m. Eastern time, so we're going to go ahead and get started now. We'll go through a few introductions and we'll be on our merry way. So thank you to everybody who is attending today's webinar, Thunderstorm Photography, Capturing the Storm One Flash at a Time. My name is Kevin Thiel and I am the chair of the AMS Local Chapter Affairs Committee. And again, we're really happy that you're able to be here to attend this webinar. Where we're going to be sitting down with Jeremy Bauer from JRB Storm Photography and Paul Smith from Paul M. Smith Photography to talk about how they capture the storm and how they got into photography and their experiences. And so this should be a really fun webinar for today. We've kind of been having this idea bouncing back and forth ever since November or so. So it's really great to be able to finally put this on. So before we get started, a few housekeeping things. You will see within the GoToWebinar control panel, if you've never used it before, there are a few different features that I can point you to. You will notice there is a questions tab within that control panel. And that's where if you throughout the webinar, if you want to ask questions, you're more than welcome to put the questions in there and type away at any point. And then we'll answer all those questions at the end with kind of a Q&A with both of our speakers. If there's anything that you need to communicate directly, maybe audio isn't working for you or something comes up, you can then type that into the chat. I'm actually going to put something in the chat right now for everybody. It's a few useful links for what we have. And so recall that this webinar is going to be recorded. It'll be available on the AMS website under amatsoap.org/webinars. Also, I'm going to include the AMS chapters webpage and also the Twitter page for the AMS Local Chapter Affairs Committee as well. So if you ever want to connect with us on future webinars or anything like that, then you're more than welcome to. So I'm going to post that right now, and so you should have those links all there. So as I mentioned before, it's really exciting to have this webinar put on today. We've got about 42 people in attendance, which is awesome. And hopefully we'll see that number rise even a little bit further. But we'll dive right on in. And first, we'll start off by introducing our first speaker, which is Jeremy Bauer from JRB Storm Photography, originally from Ohio. And actually, that's kind of how I originally knew about Jeremy and his photography skills. And we actually, a few years ago, he was a speaker at a meteorology symposium that I organized as an undergraduate student. So he was there along with the Ohio State Meteorology Symposium there too. And so I've known him for a few years now and been able to see a lot of his work that he was able to turn out. And I thought he'd be a great person to really kind of dive into the more technical aspects of capturing the storm and what he's done and throughout his career so far. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Jeremy and let him kind of show you how he captures the storm.
All right, thank you so much, Kevin, for that introduction, and get started here to present my side of things. Welcome to basically the meteorology version of show and tell. So dive in right here and introduce a little bit about who I am. As Kevin mentioned, I got my Bachelor of Science degree in Atmospheric Science at Ohio State back in 2005. I've been living in Lincoln, Nebraska since August 2005, where I attended graduate school at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. A little bit more about my background. I've been storm chasing since 2001. I was actually chasing with a storm chasing tour company for a number of years, from about 2001 to 2006. I tell everyone that I'm basically a self-taught photography enthusiast. I don't consider myself a professional in any way, shape, or form. Both my wife and I have full-time jobs. This is just something that we taught ourselves how to do over the years. And our presentations have mostly been just focusing on educating, a vast majority of different people with different backgrounds, meteorologists, emergency management, storm spotters, and photography enthusiasts on various topics, including storm chasing and storm safety and weather photography. And what is JRB Storm Photography? Well, first and foremost, it wouldn't have been possible without my wife, Chantel, who is also a fellow Ohio State graduate as well. She got her degree in atmospheric science. So we're both degree meteorologists. And basically, none of this would have been possible without her. She has been really my my biggest support throughout this endeavor. And we just really enjoy showing our passion for weather and photography with the public. As I mentioned, again, just all different types of individuals with different backgrounds. We've given presentations and basically all over the country in different forums, different symposiums, including the Ohio University Meteorological Symposium where I met Kevin. So it's been quite an adventure, and I want to kind of show you some things and give you some tips and some of the things that we've come across over the years. First, right off the bat, recommended gear. One of the things that I recommend right off the bat is when you're considering purchasing gear for storm photography or weather photography, always make sure you invest in a really good tripod. Usually a carbon fiber one is the best route to go. Something that's hopefully also lightweight and portable. So that way when you travel, it's very, very easy to carry around there with you. Another thing is your lenses. There's different lenses that you can invest in. Think about wide angle, think about your telephoto lenses. A nice wide angle lens will allow you to get that entire thunderstorm in the viewfinder relatively easily. Telephoto lenses, perfect for, you know, zooming in on a feature, a wall cloud, a tornado, if you will. You can also use your telephoto lenses to also shoot lightning from a great distance away. So think about, you know, when you're purchasing from that respective things, wide angle and telephoto lenses. I'll get into the shutter release cable in a little bit, but basically the shutter release cable is very nice to use as far as when you're photographing lightning. That way you don't have to touch the camera, and allows you to also even photograph lightning from inside your vehicle if you need to, if you have a wireless option. Now, what I'm going to show you here is just some of the more recent favorite pics that we've taken. This was a image of a tornado that an EF2 near Federal, Wyoming. This was near the town of Cheyenne back on May 27th, 2018. Now, one thing about photography, a lot of it is skill, but a lot of it is also right place, right time. And that was just in this particular case on that particular day. So yes, this is probably my favorite tornado image that I've taken to date. And then a few minutes later, I always wanted to do kind of like a Wizard of Oz tribute. So this is kind of like my tribute to the Wizard of Oz, if you will, this black and white, kind of like the rope out stage of this particular tornado. One thing you'll notice too, I'll make mention here as I go through these photographs, all of the settings, because there may be questions about what settings did you use for this particular photograph. You will see that the shutter speed, so in this case 1/160th of a second, the aperture f7.1, and the ISO 800. All those settings will be listed in there. So if you want to take some notes while you're listening to this, whether it be now or later, you have something to reference back to. Now, one of the things that's happened over the last few years is that my wife and I have just fallen in love with the high plains and the northern plains. We've done a lot of our storm observing, storm chasing, if you will, the last few years, more in the northern plains and high plains. So you're up in North and South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming. It's a little bit more challenging. The road networks aren't nearly as good as they are in the central and southern plains, but you can get some very, very, very picturesque storms up in that area. And you have a lot of diverse foregrounds too. You have more grassy areas in some areas, and in some areas, you know, let's face it, you know, between here and the Canadian border, there's a few hundred fences. So you can use some different things for your foreground and everything. This particular image was taken near the town of Fremont, Nebraska, back on June 11, 2018. One thing to keep in mind is when you're out taking photographs of thunderstorms and so forth, just make sure that you always have escape route, know the geography of the area, know your road networks, just in case you need to get basically the heck out of Dodge. Thank goodness this particular supercell did not produce a tornado right there on the town of Fremont. And then here's another example of just why I love the high plains. This is near Wright, Wyoming. This is actually near the National Thunder Basin National Grassland. So that is just one of my more recent, again, favorite images with that nice hail shaft. And then this was actually later in the day near the town of Hewlett. Came so close. The town of Hewlett is actually near Devil's Tower. And this storm was just about 2 miles to the east of Devil's Tower. So this image could have been even that more amazing or magnificent, however you want to call it, if that particular storm had gone right over Devil's Tower near it. In this particular case, you can see back in there, there's definitely a wall cloud back in there. We never saw any tornadoes. There were 2 tornadoes that this storm did produce right there near the town of Hewlett back there. Again, one of my more favorite storms. And the other thing about the northern plains that I want to mention here is, especially when you get into late June, is that, that time of year, the storms are not moving nearly as quickly. So we basically sat here on this road for a good 30, 45 minutes just watching this storm as it kind of moved towards us at about, I think the fastest was moving at one point was maybe about 20 miles an hour. So we were able to keep up ahead of it quite easily. Again, just another example there, Montana. That was the first time we've ever chased in Montana. The one bit challenging thing about Montana is you have a paved road maybe every 50 miles if you're lucky. So that's about the only disadvantage. But again, some very, very amazing looking storms up in that area of the country. This was a low precipitation, or LP, supercell near the town of Moore. That's in central Montana. Again, some just very, very picturesque looking storms up in that region of the country. A few quick tips here on sunsets, especially when you get into storm environments, especially if you're not as most you don't have a lot of photography background and maybe you're just interested in it. There's a mode on your camera, AV mode or aperture priority. That might be a good starting place for you. I usually say just kind of put it in AV mode, and then basically you're just changing the f-stop. It allows you to change that, and then the camera will basically kind of go between, let it decide what shutter speed it wants and so forth. So again, it kind of allows you to kind of get a good introduction into taking those particular types of photographs. This was near Bismarck. This was actually taken almost at 10 o'clock at night. You notice this was taken in early July, so the sun is setting quite late in the evening. So we just saw this cumulonimbus tower, CB tower going up, and that was just a terrific image. Same thing here. This is another shot of Hewlett back there on June 25th. Again, kind of with the sun setting back there. Walk you through here a little bit about lightning. Again, just probably how to do that as safely as possible in terms of lightning photography. Again, I already mentioned before, tripod. Tripod is going to be required if you want to get a really, really good image of lightning with a DSLR or mirrorless camera. Again, think about investing in that tripod. Make sure when you're photographing lightning, you're going to have to be in manual focus, and you want to be in some type of manual mode. Now, Chantel and I will always use bulb mode. Bulb mode is basically, it's a specific mode on a camera where you can actually just open the shutter, and that shutter will remain open as long as you want it to. So whether you determine when you want to close it. When you're in other types of manual settings for using that particular mode, basically the camera you can set it for like 20 seconds or 30 seconds. With bulb mode, you can actually just let the shutter stay open as long as you want. It's also good if you want to do like astrophotography as well. Again, just gonna make sure, patience, mistakes will happen with lightning photography. Guarantee you, just like it happens with us all the time, you're going to have your camera pointed over to one direction of the storm, and then you have a lightning strike happen just outside your frame. It happens. Just again, just be patient. Trust me, you'll get something. Shutter release cable. Just talk about this real quick. There's a couple different options out there. There's wired and wireless. The wireless one that we use is called Velo. You can get it for usually about $40 on sale if you look around on different various websites out there. But that wireless shutter is extremely nice if you want to, be inside your vehicle, if you're shooting lightning, uh, keeps you dry, keeps you about as safe as you can be. And a lot of these wireless shutters or shutter release cables, they're actually good. The Velo one is actually good up to 300 feet away. So you can actually be up to 300 feet away from your camera and still open and close your shutter. Talk a little bit about the settings, because I know this question comes up a lot, what settings to use for photographing lightning. I would say the best thing to do is for aperture, just set it to f8 and just kind of go from there with trial and error. Again, sometimes that's going to work just fine, and sometimes you're going to have to adjust it, maybe go down to like a 5.6 or 6.3. But again, if all else fails, just use f8 and kind of go from there. Always keep your ISO though. Try to keep your ISO at 100. There's a lot of times it's usually not necessary to go beyond that. Again, a couple quick tips here. Sometimes you can use your horizon to help you as far as your focusing goes. So if you have any lights on the horizon from a nearby city or town, as long as those are pretty much in focus back there, you're going to know that your lightning is also going to be in focus when you do that. Another thing that'll come up as far as lightning photography, if you're in or near a city or a town, is it possible? It is possible. One of the things you got to be worried about is because you have so much ambient light from the street lights and just from buildings and such, is that you can pretty much do it. I would say 30 seconds is going to be your max. If you go beyond 30 seconds on your shutter, you're going to start running into problems where the camera's just gathering in so much light at that point that it may actually kind of basically blow out the lightning, like you're just not going to be able to see the actual bolt at that point. Now, when you get into this just before or around, just after sunset, you have this beauty light that you'll see that's kind of like midnight blue or kind of purplish look to it. Basically, you're into civil twilight there, kind of call this beauty light. This is, it's still possible to get images to come out during this particular time. Again, you're going to be a little bit more restricted as far as how long you're going to be able to leave that shutter open. I would say 20 seconds is going to be probably the max. Again, there's just enough light there from the civil twilight that it may cause the image to be blown out. So again, if you're just after sunset, you're kind of like that civil twilight mode. Just make sure, again, about 15-20 seconds is going to be your max. Then just after sunset, or now you're pretty much dark at this point, you can pretty much leave that shutter open as long as you want to in a lot of cases. I would say I've taken images, left the shutter open for 40-50 seconds, been able to get multiple bolts without any problem. Then this is the two images right here. This was in Wyoming. This was my first lightning capture in the state of Wyoming from 2019, and then this was the first one that I ever captured in the state of Montana back there in 2019 as well. Okay, a couple quick tips here. I'll wrap things up. How to make your images unique. One thing, I mentioned this already, keep your horizon level. It makes it much easier to get it right in camera right off the bat. Yes, you can fix it while you edit, like in Lightroom or Photoshop or any type of editing software. But if you get the image correct, horizons level, actually when you're going through and capturing it on the camera, that's one less thing you have to worry about when you go to edit. Sometimes it may seem kind of silly, but sometimes the best zoom is your feet. I'll get to that a little bit more here in a second. Use foreground elements or objects. You can use a fence, you can use a person, you can use different rock formations, mountains. Just use something that's going to give your image a little bit more depth. Talk a little bit more here in a second about try black and white, monochrome, if you will, or maybe sepia on some images, kind of give a unique look. And then try to even out your exposure by trying different points of view. One thing Chantel in this particular image told me, why don't you crouch down, get closer to the core and take the camera and kind of shoot up, kind of up at an angle. So it kind of gives it that kind of unique look to it. You got the corn there in the foreground. You got the Mammatus clouds kind of there back there. So again, it kind of gives it kind of a unique look there and feel to it. This particular image is one of our probably more famous ones that's been around on the internet. It's a favorite for a lot of folks out there. Biggest thing that we did right here, we just kind of crossed the gravel road. We could have just zoomed in with our camera, but we looked both ways. There was no one obviously there, so we just kind of crossed that road right there and stood by that kind of barbed wire fence and just composed our shot, and that's what we got. So again, sometimes the best zoom is just using your feet, but just remember, just have situational awareness. Make sure you're looking around for other vehicles and so forth, so that way you're not accidentally getting yourself in trouble there. Again, same thing. You can use a barbed wire, fence out there that help you out. Wouldn't be a weather presentation without having at least some type of rainbow. So here's this right there. You can even see the hail fog from this Montana storm back in there. Again, same thing, just making sure your horizon is level as best can be. Again, another example there of using the barbed wire fence there in the foreground as a way of giving a unique look. And again, you can even use a person right there to give your foreground an interesting look to it. Again, tripod is always nice. This image would not have been possible without a tripod. You notice it's 1/10 of a second, so it's a very slow shutter. F10, I wanted to get as much depth of field as possible. ISO 160, kept it nice and low there. I wanted it as a clean image as possible. You got the red barn. Made sure not only the foreground object, but I put it in the corner. Again, kind of gives a more of a unique look there. I'll leave that one up more for a couple more seconds so you can marvel that one. And then sometimes you even have a railroad track that you can use there in the foreground as kind of give an interesting element there to your photograph. Black and white, really good to use if you have a hail shaft right there. You can use that as maybe in the back of your mind, it's like maybe I should try that in a black and white. This is the one of our favorite images as well. Kind of use the sepia tone on that. That was Chantel's recommendation. And then we saw that before with the right storm. Again, just try to black and white. Again, with the hail shaft, I think it kind of gives a unique look right there. Same thing, just crouch down real close to the ground, kind of give a unique perspective there. Decided to do this when I saw the mamadas coming overhead. So I tried to do that particular image. It also helped out because the sun was setting back there, gave a little bit different angle. Also kind of gave that kind of nice glow there in the foreground. All right, I'll wrap things up here with a couple beyond the atmosphere images for you, for everyone out there. If you're afraid of birds, you can look away from the screen right now. This is 1.2 million snow geese there in Missouri. If you're a fan of air shows, we do just a little bit of everything. We obviously, weather photography is our first and foremost passion, but we do a little bit of everything. Spent all our lives trying to find clouds and storms, and here's the one time we're trying to go out there and make sure we're not finding any clouds the day of the total solar eclipse, and we actually managed to do it out there in the Nebraska Panhandle near the town of Bingham. That was quite the sight. If you're a fan of astrophotography, full moon, P1000 is a great camera for that particular thing. It has a 3000 millimeter, 35 millimeter equivalent lens, so you can just zoom right in on there without any problem. Again, make sure it's tripoded though. And then this is on the Mauna Kea. So this is at the visitor center there on the big island of Hawaii. Crystal clear skies, 9,200 feet elevation. You could see it with the naked eye, so it didn't really require to have the shutter open very long. When you do astrophotography, the best thing to do to cut down on the star trails is you want to bump up your ISO as high as it can go. Your aperture, you can try to go as low as possible, 1.4 to maybe 2. 2.2 is kind of like a general area you want to go with that. But again, the biggest thing you want to do is, in order to do this without having star trails for the Milky Way, is bump up by your ISO as high as it can go. And then this is the Volcanoes National Park. So I always wanted to photograph a volcano. Well, there you go. That was a dream come true right there as well. So well, that will wrap up my portion of it. So thank you again to Kevin, Kristen, and everyone there at the associated with the local chapter affairs committee of the AMS, for inviting me here to speak here. If you want to follow us on social media, there's our stuff right there. We're JRB Storm Photography there on Facebook. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at JRB Storm. We will have an online store coming soon as well, so just kind of follow us on that for the latest. And if you have any questions beyond this today that don't get answered, you're more than welcome, any of you, to email me directly at jrbstorm@gmail.com. But in the meantime, I will turn things back over to Kevin to introduce Paul. And again, thank you guys so much for inviting me here today.
All right, yeah, thank you so much, Jeremy. There was a lot of amazing captures in there. And so while we're transitioning now, we'll now then turn our screen sharing now over to Paul, and I'll give him a quick introduction in the meantime. So I'll now be introducing Paul Smith from Paul Smith Photography. Also, you might have seen a lot of his captures, maybe on Twitter or on other social media platforms, often capturing sprites in the upper atmosphere of the Earth. Also has a great website, spritechaser.com. The reason why I originally knew Paul was I was doing a project as a graduate student where I was looking at sprites, and I wanted to look at the lightning that creates sprites. And so I found his photos on Twitter and thought this is amazing, and was able to get some photos and correlate those with some lightning data. And that was really nice to be able to have that kind of a setup. So some really great captures, and we'll be looking at a lot of those photos today. And so we'll give him a second to get that transitioned over on that end.
Can you, hi Kevin, thanks. Can you see the full screen, or am I off?
Currently, we see the PowerPoint as if you were editing it.
Ah. Okay. Let me do this. How about now?
Now the image is too large for the screen. I would suggest try exiting PowerPoint or exiting out of the slideshow. And then on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see of the window, you'll see the book icon. It should be the reader view, bottom right-hand corner.
Oh, there we go.
And there we go. That should
Awesome.
work.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on, Kevin, and some really good information there from Jeremy. Some really nice images. I enjoyed that. So my name is Paul Smith, and I've got a few social media accounts. Paul M. Smith Photography is where you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I guess you could say out of all the weather events, my favorite, my forte, and my passion is the upper atmospheric sprites. As you can see in this first picture here, this was from northern Oklahoma, and this one is actually licensed to be printed in a textbook here real soon. I don't have the name at hand, but yeah, on my website, spritechaser.com, where I offer workshops and prints and the likes. Well, a little bit about me, I guess, just to get started. I grabbed the camera a few years ago now, traveled a lot for work, and I just wanted to capture some of the things I was seeing. And as you can see here, this was when I was working in Canada, and this was my first ever time photographing the Northern Lights. And it was pretty much, I think, the turning point for me as to when I just got hooked into photography in general. I always had a camera on me, whether it was a disposable camera or I had one of those little, cassette video cameras from an early age. But I always wanted to kind of capture what was going on, what I'm seeing, the neat stuff I was seeing. But that's this I think this series here is kind of when I started taking photography seriously. It's when I realized I could actually get some nice images, and I enjoyed the challenge of doing that with different compositions and stuff. And so this is some more Northern Lights pictures, kind of getting more into compositions and different just different ways of looking at landscapes and the sky and everything else. So I'm as you can tell, all these pictures are in the dark. That's just my favorite time to be out. I don't know what it is, just because maybe I'm antisocial. I don't know. I just really enjoy being out at night under the stars. It's just dead quiet. I just feel like it's my time with nature. And then so my work finished up in Canada, but of course I live in Oklahoma, and these are some of my earlier shots in Oklahoma. Once again, the night sky just captivated me, and these are some of my earlier efforts at the Milky Way from central Oklahoma, some of the unique landscape there. And then the bottom row is just a bunch of lightning I've captured. These were more just things that happened when I happened to be camping or this and that, and not anything I necessarily chased. It was more just weather that came to me. So so just getting into my first my first experience with sprites. I always try to remember where I first heard about, and I'm pretty sure it was on a Nat Geo documentary, but they've always been in the back of my mind. And especially after shooting Northern Lights and stuff, I always wondered how these sprites possibly captured down in the States with all the weather down there. So I always kind of knew they were there, but I heard they were so rare and everything else. I really didn't hold much chance of capturing any. But anyways, back in 2017, my wife was working out in California, and we went out to visit. And of course, me being me, I packed all my camera gear and was ready for the dark nights, and decided to head out to the Mojave Desert for the Perseids back then. And this is when I happened to capture my first sprite. This is the video of it. So I was pretty excited, just amazing. It was way off in the distance. I measured this one afterwards as being, it was almost 400 miles away. This was over some monsoon storms in southeast Arizona at the time. So I was in the Mojave Desert. Just beautiful how dark it is. You can see going all the way down to the horizon. There's like no light pollution. Looking to the southeast there, it was just perfect conditions. And the reason I pointed in that direction initially was on my drive out to this spot, I kept thinking I was seeing something out of the corner of my eye, just flashes on the horizon, and I could see on the radar there were storms, and I think there's no way I'm seeing the lightning from those storms, but maybe maybe I'm seeing the sprites. That's really what I thought. So this one video here was after 3 or 4 hours of pointing in that direction. So it wasn't like a super sprite storm by any means, but that was pretty exciting, my first ever capture. And there you can see after a little bit of analysis afterwards, when I kind of looked into what they are, what I captured, the top area there is really where we're looking at the real upper atmosphere, about 70 to 80, between 70 and 90 kilometers up in the halo area, and then the tendrils, the positive streamers reaching down towards the cloud tops. And you can see the light scatter from the big lightning bolt below. I'm assuming it's a positive bolt. It could have been a negative bolt of lightning, but that's what I'm assuming. So what are sprites? Here's a nice chart put together by a friend of mine, Frankie Lucina. He lives in Puerto Rico, and he's been capturing sprites on his system for a long time, and he's really a good resource, citizen scientist. But he put together this chart of pretty much all of the upper atmospheric transient luminous events we can see above thunderstorms, or we can capture above thunderstorms sometimes. So you can see the halo there is what I probably captured, or I might have captured a negative sprite. I don't have the lightning data, so I don't know what I captured my first time there. But you can see the picture on the right there was a set of column sprites, and then if you look way down at the tree line there, kind of right in the center at the bottom, you'll see the actual lightning bolt that caused those sprites. And that might be the cloud to ground strike, but back in the storm system, there's all the intra-cloud lightning associated with that cloud to ground strike, which the intra-cloud lightning is more where the sprites are associated above. So you can see all the things, all the different transient luminous events. So after my first capture and seeing all these other things that were going on up there, I was just hooked. I got to try and get more of this stuff. This stuff is just fascinating to me. This is a video. Yeah, that's a video of the picture I just showed where you can see the sprite with the lightning. I just wanted to show how the sprite was kind of offset from the lightning there. And then all the crackling going on in the background is my, I have various VLF radios set up where I can listen to the lightning, because after a while you get used to listening for the lightning that causes sprites. So that's also something fun. It's not just visually entertaining, it can be audibly entertaining too. So the lightning that causes sprites, like this is a bolt I captured just from close to where I live in Guthrie, looking up towards Enid. It's actually about 50 miles away, this shot. So a lot of people think that positive lightning comes from the top of storms, so that's not necessarily true. Like I don't have the data for this, but this is probably a negative lightning stroke just because of all the branched leaders coming down. But it's this was a long range shot I was pretty happy with. Like I said, 50 miles. I believe it was on a 135 mil or something like that, and a 5-second shot. I think it was fairly close to some of the settings that Jeremy mentioned there with his lightning shots. It was a kind of mid F range shot and a little bit higher ISO, I think, just to get some of the foreground and everything. But this is all of the landscape kind of close to me in Guthrie here with a nice looping bolt. So positive strikes look more like this with the smooth channel, and the more the stream is in the higher level versus closer to the ground. So once again, I don't have the lightning data for this. This is just something I've learned over time, is positive lightning strokes kind of look like this. The kind of more branched up towards the cloud, and then you have the kind of the smooth channel coming down. So these are the big positive flashes, that the ones that really can cause sprites. And I think I read somewhere it was 1 in every 300 lightning strikes on Earth is positive. I might be a little bit off on that, but they're just not as common as your regular negative lightning strike. And then here's another one, a little bit more close. You can see it's versus the first bolt with all the different branches and the lower levels. This one's just kind of got the branching at the top, but it's a positive bolt, I'm sure of it. And you can see with positive strikes, they kind of draw, this one was on the base of the cloud, or the intracloud stuff, or the, and you can kind of imagine what's going on in the cloud with some of these strikes, and as to why these sprites above are so big versus one lightning bolt on the ground. You can have an expansive, 10, 20 mile wide worth of lightning up in the cloud associated with that one stroke. In the same kind of process that goes on with these big positive bolts, it really charges the upper atmosphere, and it really sets an imbalance, which causes things like this upward lightning I captured here just behind Bricktown in Oklahoma City from an antenna farm. What happens is the upper atmosphere is all messed up with its polarity, and here it was enough to trigger, this is all just upward lightning. So it started at the towers and shot up towards where there's a huge electrical imbalance in the upper atmosphere. And these are kind of where you'd see your sprites up above the clouds too. So it's kind of neat. And then the size of these things, they're they're like 30, 40 miles across and 30 miles tall. So I just kind of did a little graphic looking at the Oklahoma City Metro side by each here. And really, when you put it at that kind of scale, it's just real easy to see why I got fascinated with these things and wanted to learn out more and capture more and learn more about them. Another capture showing the relative size. This was a really one of my first high megapixel captures, so you can really see the detail in the tendrils and some of the beading in the tendrils, which are thought to be like pockets of nitrogen gas. The thing is about sprites, nobody really knows that much about them. Everything you read about them is kind of theory right now. Of course, it's in a certain level of the atmosphere, which they call the ignorosphere, where they can't get to necessarily with rockets and balloons and everything else. Yet we just can't fly there. We can't get airplanes there or anything else. So most of our understanding of it comes from observations like these and then theories. There's very little actual physical exploration able to be done up there. And the pink of sprites is the same kind of thing as you see in the northern lights, where the northern lights penetrate the atmosphere from above to a lower level that excites nitrogen, and you get the pink fringes at the lower levels. It's kind of the same, almost the same kind of process. I mean, sprites are mostly pink in color, and it's associated with excited nitrogen. And there's also oxygen being excited there too, but it's really the nitrogen that you see the reds from. And then some other features you see here, I captured some, it was a strong sprite event, kind of in a circular fashion. And then there was some of those secondary jet features that if you had slow motion, which I don't, you would be able to see they actually start from the cloud top and then reach up, fire up towards the sprites. Really quite fascinating. There's some diagrams I pulled from papers I was reading about them, how it's like the atmosphere essentially was, the ionosphere was essentially lowered by these strong sprites, and it caused the continuing current in the cloud from a big lightning bolt. It kind of continued, and it caused more electrical disturbance between the cloud and then this lowered ionosphere now. So then you get these secondary features, which are called jets. You can see they're kind of faintly underneath. I'm sorry, I'm just regurgitating what I read and how I understand it. I don't know if any of it's really correct or the proper scientific terms. I just like to regurgitate. So, and then this is my first capture a few years ago now that kind of did the rounds, got quite a bit of attention. It just, I don't know, it looked, I guess it's quite the thing to see something so bright red flashing above the cloud tops, and it got quite a bit of attention. It was cool. And then here was my first ever sprite selfie. So this, I like to do this every once in a while, just set the camera up behind myself and have it clicking away. And this one, the moon was kind of high up in the sky, and so the sky's kind of blue. You can see a lot of the stars. The sky's kind of blue, as happens when you have a moon that's, you know, close to a half or getting closer to full. It kind of washes out the sky, but you can see right in the center there, just above the clouds, there's some small sprite columns just flashing up there. And there's me on the other camera enjoying it. I just wanted to show some of the light pollution we have in Oklahoma. This is actually considered a dark area, but you know, there's just no escaping the light pollution. But a lot of people ask me about settings and exposures and this and that. And I mean, to generalize it, if I'm not in a workshop environment, I would say my settings are just for the conditions. I mean, you have, like I say, you have moonlight, you have light pollution. So you want to pull in as much light as you can, but there's always tweaking for the particular place you're at and the time of night you're at and everything else. So my shots range from anywhere from 1 second all the way up to 10 seconds. And, I'm generally shooting with fast lenses, and I'm generally shooting lots and lots and lots of shots. I basically, my first year doing this, I should have counted out one cannon at 1,000 clicks, and now my second cannon's on something like 60,000. So it's not for the faint of heart. You go through a lot of exposures in trying to capture the sprites. And then this is my first capture on a DSLR, and this is kind of the bane of astrophotographer's existence is clouds. It always seems to be clouds. It's spoiling the fun. And that was in this case too. This was from the Arbuckle Mountains in Oklahoma. And these sprites are going on somewhere from storms somewhere over Woodward. You can't even see the lightning or anything there. And then I kind of got hooked dissecting some of my captures, able to look and see, oh, I'm capturing other stuff here, not just sprites. There's those troll jets, as I showed in the original diagram of different things going on. So it's pretty neat to see that I get some images of those also. And then I just really started to want to get into more, see if I could get some nice, compositions involved with the sprites. And my personal favorites is finding windmills in Oklahoma. We seem to have an abundance of them, and I really enjoy using them as a foreground in storms and sprite shots. And then these were some of my best captures from the start. This was Father's Day. My wife's present to me was letting us stay in Amarillo on a drive back from California. We could have made it back home that night, but my Father's Day gift was to allow us to stay in Amarillo so I could go out and shoot storms. And man, it was just amazing. I was out until almost the sun came up, and when things really got going, I managed to get some really, really good quality images here of the cloud bank moving in associated with the storms. You can see there's some different kinds of sprites in here, really well detailed, and it was really exciting to get those. And then things like finding out I could capture sprite reflections was pretty exciting. They're pretty low quality sprites here, but to me it was just exciting to see that I could get reflections in water. So get some composition ideas there too. And it culminated in a shot like this. This is actually 3 sprites that fired together. I just superimposed them into one image, kind of like what people do with lightning stacks. And they all happened within a really fast time frame, but I just put them all into one image. And it's what's probably good is this is called dancing sprites, because you have sprites in succession firing. And what we think is happening is there's a large scale flash back there in the back there in the clouds behind the storm, and then there's, from one flash you can get a bunch of cloud to ground strikes within that large expansive flash. And we think that's what's happening with these sprites, is when you get the cloud to ground strikes and the return stroke, it can be enough to kind of jolt the upper atmosphere to get excited and cause a sprite. This is just another one. Here's a video of one of my first up close jellyfish, and it just shows how fast they are. They're really, really quick, fraction of a second. And here's, on the right, we have kind of a textbook, what they call a carrot sprite. So you can see the really powerful lightning strike underneath causing that dome of light. And the very upper part of the sprite is the tufts, or the carrot tops, I guess, would be in the very upper atmosphere, right around 90 miles or so. And then we have the sprite bodies, which they have like little wings, it looks like, but in slow motion, you can see some slow motion videos on YouTube, and that's like up and down streamers firing really, really fast. And then we've got the tendril features here, reaching down, which are usually hard to get. And then another sprite from that night on the left with the higher megapixel DSLR. And this one was my favorite, I think. This is from northern Oklahoma looking over Wichita. And it's just, I just think it's a really kind of ethereal looking image, just kind of ghostly with the stars. And you can see the Big Dipper there and some upper wispy cirrus cloud. And it was right towards the end of the night. The clouds usually are, there's nothing you can do about clouds there. When they get there, you're done. So this was pretty close to the end of my night that night. And then I've managed to get a bunch of up close, higher definition stuff, as you can see here, where if you look real close, you can see once again the tendrils shooting down towards the cloud, and then these really strong, these were really bright. This is actually a night a couple of years ago now, and there was a tornado outbreak, and there was supposed to be tornadoes in southwest Kansas that night, and a bunch of chasers had gathered there, and it was just a huge bust. But anyways, I think a bunch of guys did astrophotography, and they were capturing these sprites. I was a little bit closer in Oklahoma, but I know a bunch of guys captured these particular sprites that night, which it was cool to see the images from different angles the next day. And then so now it's where I'm at is I like my landscape shots. I like picking a feature and getting my focal length right, and now I've actually learned to focus half decent. I'm getting some pretty decent shots, and this one was in Oklahoma again with my favorite windmill now. And then of course last summer was the summer of the comet, and I chased that comet for a full week I had this kind of shot in mind, and I chased this comet for a week trying to get the angles right, and with storms and the comet. And it actually worked out good because all that time spent with the comet, I get to figure out my exposures and focal lengths and what looked good, what didn't. And then finally I had a situation where I could line it up with storms and get this one single shot here, and I managed to get it from a windmill too. So this is probably my favorite ever shot to date. I mean, this was a pretty magical night for me all around. And then here's another shot just showing, do we have lots of time?
We have about 6 minutes left in our hour slot. So if it's going to be about a minute or two, that's okay. But anything longer, we might need to pass on for time.
Yeah, okay. I'll just quickly go through. This is just showing the sprites changing color from the very top of the atmosphere to the bottom, and then these new things we discovered right in the upper atmosphere we call ghosts, green tips on the top of sprites. And then this is some of the stuff what Kevin was talking about, and it's really exciting. I managed to line up some sprites with GLM data, which we show the big flashes. So it's been exciting to do some collaborations with different guys in different fields. And 2021 goals, hopefully some workshops and capturing some new and exciting stuff, we hope. So thanks, Kevin.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's a lot of again amazing captures within there. It's something that not many people typically see or have even know about, especially with sprites. And so I know there's a lot of kind of, even on the outreach side of informing the public of what sprites are, that a lot of these photographs have done a really great job of illustrating what the sprite really is and what it does. So yeah, thank you so much for that presentation. I will now go through and do a few questions. We got several here today. And so we're gonna go through probably the next 10 minutes or so and answer those. And so we'll start with a question from Dave. This question was asked for Jeremy, but if either of you want to answer it, feel free to. But it's regarding Canon cameras. Do they overexpose the reds, or do you need to increase exposure compensation?
Yeah, he's probably referring to, because I had that in that slide. Just to real briefly, I've used a lot of different Canon cameras, Rebels, Canon 5D Mark II, and so forth. It seems like, and this is just my opinion, it seems like the Canons from time to time, I don't know what it is, it seems like it does want to overexpose on the reds. That's just something to maybe kind of be leery of when you go into post processing, or excuse me, processing or editing the pics. That it may do that. My guess is if it's going to do it, it's not going to be by much. It's going to be maybe by the third or 2/3 overexposed. So you may want to set the settings in your camera. Maybe if you have a lot of reds going on, especially with sunset, maybe you want to do a exposure compensation, maybe dial it down a little bit, like -1/3 or 2/3.
Okay, awesome. This next question is for Paul. This is from NWS Glasgow, and this is asking if you've ever reached out to Walt Lyons, who they said that Walt is a former AMS president and has been studying sprites and jets for over 30 years.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, I do. We talk back and forth quite a bit, actually. He's, believe it or not, fairly active on Facebook. So he every once in a while he'll comment, and then we've emailed back and forth. I've had a lot of questions, and he's very helpful in answering questions. So yes, we do. He actually put together he put together a webinar not too long ago, and some of my stuff was in there, just in relation to these green ghosts. And but yeah, there's quite a it's really nice having there's a pretty good community of citizen scientists, and then we kind of work hand in hand with a lot of actual scientists now, so that's nice. And if they're not too busy, they'll generally answer our questions. Like there's Walt Lyons, and then there's Stephen Kummer, but he's usually very busy. But yeah, I do talk to Walt. Thank you.
All right, and another question for Jeremy. This is from George, and it says, did you consider doing infrared photography of storms? I'm not sure how to answer that, but if you have anything on that, feel free to.
Absolutely. Trust me, there are a lot of things that I want to, endeavors, if you will, that I want to get into. That is one of them. So kind of like the best thing to do is stay tuned. I think there's going to be some different things that down the road here that I want to attempt. I would love to get into what Paul does with the sprites. That is awesome stuff. Maybe not the most scientific term, but yeah, that was great stuff. The other thing is the Northern Lights too. That's another thing that we're going to want to get into eventually, to get some of those captures. So, like I said, just stay tuned, because you never know what we might get into from a photographer standpoint.
All right, we have another question, kind of a two-part question from John. And first he says, fantastic presentation, thank you so much. Also, if I didn't say, this question is for Paul, but he asked if do sprites show up on any detection networks? And then also, are there any storm modes that tend to make sprites more often than others?
Yeah, great questions. I'd love to know that myself, and that's something Kevin and I, that was part of our project, right, Kevin, where you were matching GLM data with the sprite, because I managed to get millisecond timing on a sprite, and we kind of need that to match it up to lightning, and that's essentially what Kevin did in his paper there. It was really good. If you wanted to put a link to that, Kevin, maybe people could look at that. But I think the GLM network, so it does get complicated, and of course I'm not a scientist, I will stress this, but it does get complicated. But I think between GLM data, and if you look at it, there's a guy called Thomas Ashcraft. He works from New Mexico. He's got an observatory, a private observatory of his own making out in New Mexico there, and he does a lot of different stuff, citizen science stuff with sprites, and he captures kind of the VLF on really really good equipment. I just have a portable VLF radio, but so I think between the global lightning mapper data and VLF, very low frequency radio, I think you can pick sprites out without having to observe anything, but it would take scientists to kind of decipher stuff, if that makes sense. Like I do the best I can with what I have, and I think there is potential there from what I've seen and the papers I've read, but I don't think we're quite there yet. And but I think there is definite connections between, yeah, the flashes, the sound, and the sprites. And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
The second part of the question was, if I can find it, it was, are there storm modes that tend to make sprites more often than others? Or is it just by the intensity of lightning itself?
Oh, it's a great question. It took me like three solid years of trying to figure this out. And from what I've seen is, okay, so the more, when you have more lightning, obviously you're getting sprites. When you have the stronger lightning, you're getting sprites. So where do you see that? You see that in the squall lines, you see that in the big MCSs. You don't quite see that in like if there's a single supercell rolling across the plains or whatever. So I've captured sprites from storms that from areas where I've measured the precip to be like 30 miles by 30 miles is the smallest, and then of course you get those big squall lines where that's pretty much their sprite farms. So you're looking for not just an abundance of lightning, you're looking for high quality lightning, essentially. That makes sense.
All right, let's see if we have any other questions. A question from Marianne. This is for Jeremy, and it's asking, what are you metering to for wider angle photos?
That's a good question. That's going to be, I don't usually use a light meter. The one thing that I usually do is just by trial and error. I think Paul will be able to also chime in on this point as well. As photography seems like it's just, again, like a lot of trial and error. It's repetition, and after a while, I mean, it took me a good number of years to kind of get used to it, that I see a certain environment in terms of, you know, how much light is available and so forth. I just kind of have some preset settings in my camera. A lot of cameras have the custom buttons where you can actually customize certain settings. So I know if I'm in a certain environment in terms of lighting, I just know to go to that custom button, just press that, and then I just use that. Usually I'm within the general area in terms of settings to go ahead and need to know that if I need to adjust that later, that I can. I'm not sure, Paul, do you have any comment on that, or?
I've never even held a light meter, to be honest with you. I think that's more for the professional, more professional than I am, anyways. But to me, yeah, just like you said, Jeremy, it's more trial and error. I mean, you find your settings for the moment. I mean, you probably see a lot more tornadoes than I do, so you're probably going really high speed capture there to get, so you don't get a blurry kind of structure or whatever else, because everything's moving so quick, right? And then I think in this digital age, I mean, I think we just to not to I can't really think of a better way to put it, but just we waste a lot of shots because, you know, it's not like you're going through a film roll of 24 shots on a film anymore. You can just blast through 3,000 or 4,000 shots in an hour kind of thing and pick out your favorite 4. And you might just get lucky with the settings on 1 or 2 of them or whatever. But yeah, I mean, like Jeremy was showing in his shots, like there's some really good info there on where to start looking, and then based upon the light that's available to you. I mean, with the way we have Lightroom now and everything, all the post-processing tools, like you can save a lot of pictures that look like they're gone. I mean, just to go back to that, sorry, just to go back to the very start of my slideshow, was interesting with this picture. Yeah, that picture in the bottom right where we see all the red, where's all the reds. The original picture from that was super dark. I totally underexposed and I didn't shoot for long enough. And that picture sat on a card for 2 years. And then when I actually got Lightroom, I started going through my old stuff. I raised the stop in Lightroom. I raised the exposure about 3 stops, and all those colors popped out. So it's like, don't. I guess the lesson of the story is don't ever think that the photo is ruined just because it doesn't look. You didn't capture it right at the start. There's a lot of fixing you can do with all the different programs we have now.
Yeah, and Paul, I'm going to segue real quick here, Kevin, off of what Paul just said there. Yeah, with Lightroom and everything, it is very easy nowadays with digital that if there's a shot that you think didn't come out, do not delete it in the camera. Just wait until you get in later and run the image through Lightroom. You may be able to save it, if you will. The other thing too is, just in case this is a question or addressing this, is, you know, a lot of times it's just going to be nearly impossible to get the exposure just the way you want it out in the field, if you will. So if it's going to occur, I would say that if you're going to underexpose or overexpose, you're probably going to want to go slightly overexposed and not under. The reason talking to different photographers and people who have even more knowledge than I do is if you underexpose and you try to get the exposure just right in Lightroom or Photoshop or what have you, you may be introducing a little bit of noise into the photograph just because it was underexposed to begin with. So again, if you're worried about that, again, just say that if one option, one or the other is going to occur, I would say you want to be slightly overexposed and then just make that adjustment in Lightroom later. But yeah, with digital, you could shoot hundreds and thousands of images in one evening, and you may keep 1, 2, 3 images. It happens all the time.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I think we're gonna call the webinar from here, and we'll end our Q&A period. So we'll be wrapping up now. So thank you guys both so much for taking the time to give this presentation and put all this together, and to also share your knowledge and your experiences with everybody. I know I'm very grateful for it, and I know a lot of all the attendees definitely appreciate that as well. So thank you guys so much for being there. For the attendees that are still here, just a reminder that you could view all of these webinars. They're all recorded, and this should be available within the next week or two for all AMS members to view under the link that I had posted earlier. And then after either a period of 60 or 90 days or so, it's then made publicly available to everybody after that point, and you can share that as much as you would like. And so, yeah, thank you both so much for the presentation today and for being part of this webinar. And we'll go ahead and call it a day here. So thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Jeremy, everyone.
Yes, thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Paul. Keep up the good work. Those images were great.
Oh, thanks, you too. Yeah, awesome stuff.